Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Grace to All with Paul Gray. And Rannie Childress is with us again. This has been a week since we did it before, but as he mentioned, we're wearing the same clothes that we were a week ago. I don't know if he took a bath or not, but once a week, I mean, down in Alabama, that's all you need, isn't it?
That's all I need. I don't do any work.
Yeah, I know you for being retired, you do a lot of work, but Rannie, thank you so much for being back again. And I won't go into all of Rannie's accomplishments and degrees and things like that, because I know most of you heard it last week, but Rannie has a great ministry and out of Alabama, but it's worldwide, and he's got people he's connected with around the world that are involved in that. And what I'd like to do in this podcast, Rannie, if you would, is to tell us about some of those folks, how you met them, what their kind of specialty or expertise is, and what's going on with them.
Okay. I remember last time I brought up our buddy Paul, Paul Onkby. He's kind of like our coordinator in Africa now. He's in Nigeria. We have a young man in Cameroon who actually we are going to ordain as one of our pastors probably this week.
Really?
He's actually a social worker. He works in the social work field in Cameroon. And we have a lady she's from Cameroon, but she lives in South Korea. And she's there working on a doctorate in some kind of something I can't pronounce. But her and her husband live in South Korea. She claims that she's affiliated with us. She sends me messages that I post sometimes. But her being like 13 hours, it's hard for us to get together at the same time. But her name is Eunice Onkpe, and the fellow in Cameroon is Raymond Fupart. But here in the States, we have a old codger named Doug Johansson in Minnesota. He's like me. He's retired from GCI. He was with him for many, many years. But I also am friends with him through the Baxter Kruger ministry. We've been on several of those men conferences. And Doug he does woodworking, and he's a photographer, and he's a great storyteller and a good speaker. But he connected with me when he retired. And the reason he said he did that, he said he had two little groups up there close to him in Minnesota, close to, I guess, Indianapolis. He lives in a little place called Ramsey. And he said he didn't want the people that were taking over to feel like he was just coming to scrutinize what they're doing. So he connected with me, and he says, what about if I just start joining your group online? He says, for about 6 months. And I said, right, okay. I said, good, great to have you. Well, it's been a year and a half, and I can't get rid of him. We gave him credentials through our organization, and now he is considered one of our pastors. And he's like me, he's in retirement, but he's not retired. And I'm connected. And also, Keith Stanton in Florida, right? And I went and spent a night with him recently and spoke at their ministry at the Refuge is a homeless ministry. Keith is connected with that ministry, but he's also connected with us. Claims he's coming up here soon to visit because it's not that far a drive from here. So that's Keith Stanton. He claims to be one of ours. And we have a fellow in Indiana called Tom Fallon. Now, Tom is a unique guy. Tom is he's a great guy. He don't sit still too much. He's moving all the time. But he's really involved in prison, jail, and rehab ministries there. That's how we met. And he claims us as his church as well. And he has certainly helped us out financially and all other kind of ways. He and I have kind of a unique story. Years ago, before we met, he was having some problems. And someone came to him and said, well, there's this pastor in Alabama that that's his thing. The problem is having, so that's kind of his thing. And they gave him my name, Rannie, unusual name. Said they wrote it on a piece of paper and gave it to him. He said they walked off, and he said he looked at it. He's old Jersey boy, born in New Jersey. And of course, he lives in Indiana. He says, Rannie Childress from Alabama. He said, I'm not calling. He said, he threw it in the trash. He said, I suffered another few years, and he finally met. And then I helped do I attended a retreat one weekend in Louisiana. And it was really good through an organization called Odyssey in Christ. It's headed up by Dr. Larry Hinkle, who's a friend of mine. He's an old GCI guy, but Larry's a great guy. They do a lot of stuff. They've done some stuff with us. But he brought him back in contact with me, and Tom was like, after we got to know each other, he says, he told me the story about throwing my name in the trash. I said, well, let me tell you one better than that. I said, a pastor friend of mine gave me the book called The Shack. And I looked at it the first time I looked at it and read just kind of a gist of what it was about. And I threw that in the trash. I'm not reading no junk like that. I said, I'm around enough of them guys in prison. So I went on for a while, and I'm on a trip, another conference type thing, and I'm in Kentucky. And my wife and I went to this old bookstore. I like the smell of old books. And I found an audio version of The Shack. And I saw it. And I said, I remembered the guy had given it to me. I said, well, I think I said, I can always toss it in the trash on the way home. And I listened. My wife was with me, and we were going down the Blue Ridge Parkway in Kentucky. It's beautiful. Listening to The Shack. Man, I cried all the way home. Just about cried all the way home. And my wife's like, who is this guy? Anyway, that started my love for Paul Young. But I told Tom, I said, well, you threw my name away. I threw Paul Young's book away. So I upped you on that one. But
Yeah.
Tom's one of our guys. Let's see if I've left him. Yeah, I think that's about it right now.
You have anybody on the West Coast?
Not anymore. We used to have some. They've come and gone, and just various things moved on about other things.
Yeah.
But West Coast, I'm coming.
Well, you got a wonderful group of people, and I know about those other guys, but I know Keith Stanton, and he's a good friend. And like you, I've stayed at his house and spoke at the refuge, and he and his wife are just wonderful, and their dog Rosie is.
She loves me.
Yeah, me too. And she about ate up everything I had. She likes to chew on things.
This is true.
Yeah, but no, they're just Keith and Marjorie. They're just great people, and I love them. And isn't it fun? Go ahead.
No, I would like to mention our ministry is called Grace Ministries At Rapha, and we are, even though we're located at the Rapha Treatment Center, we're affiliated with them, but we are separate. We're a separate nonprofit, of course, and of course I know all of them. But we have a recovery, we call it a recovery group called LMA, Life More Abundant, that myself and some guys put together years ago. It's our version of the 12-step program. Mm-hmm. But the reason it's different is because we specifically ensured that it was Christ-centered. Mm-hmm. You don't beat around the bush. We even tell in our paperwork, if this is not, what you're looking for, it won't hurt our feelings if you seek elsewhere. What I mean, for recovery stuff. Yeah. They have a couple of meetings a week there at Rapha, and on Zoom. Well, one guy we met through was referred to me by Mike Zenker a couple of years ago, who was struggling with some substance, and he clicked with us where he wasn't able to click with some of the traditional self-help groups. I'm a supporter of all of them. Well, most of all of them, and we have a motto with that group, and it's called "We're all recovering from something." And that just resonates with some people. You may not have an issue with alcohol, and you may not have an issue with other types of drugs, but your issue may. I had a guy tell me the other day, an older man who said he'd listened and been reading. We have a booklet you can get. He was reading our little material, and he said, "Man, it just jumped out to me that he said, I'm recovering from being a butthole, just being a smart aleck, always chopping people up, always, just hurting people verbally."
Yeah.
And he said, I broke down and started crying. He said, I read some of your stuff there. And he said, man, this stuff applies to me. And that's why we talk about it with our LMA group. It's open to anybody. Obviously, we have a lot of people with substance abuse, but I wanted to mention it because that's part of our ministry that I have if someone wanted to set up one of those kind of meetings in their area, I'd be glad to help them do that. It's not a money thing. It's just something to help you. If you do it, you're self-supporting. The only thing I asked is if you're going to use our format, stick to our format.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I have a booklet I had printed. It's probably got a typo or two in it. But the first part of the book is the format for conducting a group. The second part of the book is a workbook where someone can actually go through and work and answer questions for themselves. We use the traditional 12 steps like having AA, but we've converted them into Christ-centered. And then we have what we call victims versus victors. And we have 9 statements about that. That one really resonates with people. People come out like, you know what? I've been living my life as a victim too long. And then we have what we call 7 principles. And that's kind of it. And we have a lot of script, a lot of scripture. We have scripture tossed in there. Anyway, anybody interested, obviously I'd be glad to share that program with you. Because a lot of groups, they want to start what they call, you've heard of Celebrate Recovery, right?
I have.
And guess I need to be careful here because I'm Rick Warren kind of, sort of. He stole it from AA and converted it and then put a copyright on it, and that's how they do it. So there you go. There's my pet peeve with that. He sells it and all that stuff. But I'm not saying it's a bad program or nothing like that. But you'll have big churches that'll grab hold of that and start it as part of their ministry. And I've seen this happen. They'll grab it and start it and then not know what the heck they're doing. They like to have it on the resume, but they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have somebody affiliated with your ministry. If you're going to do something like that, have somebody kind of knows how to do that.
Yeah.
That can connect with those people, not just, well, here's what the book says, how good that works.
Yeah.
And ours is kind of a more laid back format too. It's just kind of laid back. And anyway, it's there if anybody's interested. And I send out meditations every morning on it to people.
Well, guys, thanks for telling us about that. We are all recovering from something, aren't we? And it makes me think of the Greek word metanoia, which has been wrongly translated repent. but it means change our mind. And like you said, that one fellow, he realized he'd been a butthole. Well, he needed to change his mind about that. And we've all got some things that I would describe myself of. I can't say them out loud here because they're worse than. But man, when we come to realize that, and then realize that God has always loved us, even when when our actions weren't good, or actions sometimes still aren't good, to know that He's not mad at us. Boy, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I was looking to try to see if I could find a copy of that, but I will do it some other time. I don't pull it up and let you look at it, but
yeah,
I would actually like to send you. I'll send you.
Yeah, please do.
I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, thanks.
Format where you can just print it off or whatever.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
But yeah, we all got things. Some people, you see them out there every day. They're spending more money than they can afford to spend. They're, whatever. They're doing things that they know that's not good for them. I got a unique way. I was talking to the guys at the treatment center yesterday. Sometimes I'll go out and they have an area where they're allowed to smoke their cigarettes. Of course, I'm an ex-smoker from years ago. Of course, also open heart surgery as a result of all that too. But, I'll start picking at them about their smoking habit a little bit. And they said, how'd you quit, Rannie? I said, oh, you're not going to believe how I quit. I said, I was sitting in my little smoking area where I lived at the time, just a little quarantined area where I was allowed to smoke in my house, And I was sitting there and I was thinking, these things are killing me. They're not any good for me. I know, I'm like everybody else. I know I need to quit. And I got to thinking, true story. I got to thinking, I did X number of years in jails, prisons. I've been through a lot of stuff. I've been on the streets. I've lived a rough life. I never let anybody take my stuff. I never let anybody just run over me. I stood up, I endured all that and stood up. And I said, I'm letting this cigarette punk me out. And I laid it in the ashtray and I called Shirley in there. I handed the ashtray, cigarette, and lighters. I said, here, I'm done. And she said, you want some nicotine gum? I said, don't mention it again. She stopped and said, how about the patches? I said, I don't want anything. I don't want it. And I haven't touched one since. And so when I said that to those guys, I said, what I want y'all to remember, every time you light a cigarette up, just think, I'm a punk. I said, I'm gonna put out here for the smoking area. All punks meet here. And they all like, man, you just got a way of putting things like, man, they're turning red. They're like,
oh, that's good. Yeah,
so there you go.
I was listening to Don Keithley last week, and I won't get this exactly right, but what his background. Well, he went to college and seminary at a Nazarene seminary, and then he eventually, over time, he was involved in different things. But he was talking about when he was a Nazarene. Their one of their mottos was we don't smoke and we don't chew and we don't go with girls that do. And he said, they literally thought, and he thought, that if you smoked, you were going to hell. Well, he talked about, if I remember the way he said it, was he ran into somebody from his former Nazarene days who wasn't pleased with the way Don was believing now, and the person, I might not have this exactly right, but the person said, are you saying that you no longer believe that if somebody smokes, they go to hell? Don said, hell, I don't even believe in hell anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, me either. It's just like we were talking a while ago. Dang near everything we were taught in religion wasn't true.
Yeah, well, what I teach about all that at the ministry here is God's not mad at you. God's not punishing you. The results of your wrongdoing is punishment enough.
Yeah,
You're going to get results from your wrong actions.
sure.
God's not doing that. That's a result of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. The wages of sin is death. It's not from God. It's
Not
it's
from
the
my decisions and my actions I'm taking.
yeah. And God still loves us exactly the same, includes us. His grace covers everything,
Absolutely.
whether we quit smoking or not, or anything
That's
else.
right. Absolutely right. That's why I want to say that before anybody got the wrong idea. I tease them guys about things like that, but I also teach them that is not going to condemn you in any way. If you choose to continue to do it, you're going to probably suffer consequences from it, but it's not excluding you, because you are not excluded from God. He don't even know how to exclude that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another subject. We don't have time enough to go into it deeply, but one of the things, Jesus said one time, this is a hard passage for people. It was for me too, until just recently, but he said, away from me, I never knew you. And I always wondered what that meant. And then the Lord showed me through Malcolm Smith and through Peter Hyatt. I talked to both of them within a week, and they had Lord had already spoken to him about this. What Jesus was saying was, I never knew the false you that did these things. I've always only known the real you, who is pure and perfect and right with me and set apart for me and without fault. That's the you that I know. The false you, I don't know that person, and that person's not going to be in heaven, whatever your concept of heaven is, because that person doesn't really exist. And that's kind of a different way of looking at that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's like, like there again, some of the teachings that I've heard from Paul Young and Baxter and different ones, and I put in my own words. I'm like, I heard someone tell me this the other day. We were talking about something came up about the health thing, how people are so locked into it. He said, Randy, I want you to think about your life. He said, all the stuff you've been through some pretty tough stuff. He said, would you not consider that kind of like hell? And I'm like, yeah. He says, I have this feeling that we all go through our own version of hell in this life. And it's slowly we're being redeemed or restored as this hell as we're going through this hell.
Yeah.
And it's different things for different people. And maybe some of us make this quote hell tougher on ourselves than others. I don't know about that, but I think but the worst thing that bothers you still is the worst thing that bothers you. And I may think it's nothing.
Mm.
I talk to folks that have issues that come up, and somebody else say, well, that ain't nothing. I said, it is to them. I said, we don't compare my bad stuff to his bad stuff. Whatever he thinks is the worst stuff's happened to him, that's the worst stuff that he thinks happened to him. Mm-hmm. Don't compare tit for tat. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, man, we're going, and that made sense to me when my friend, matter of fact, it was Doug Johansson was talking about it, about how he says that, all that's just going to be a burning away, and somewhere we're going to step through and it's going to be, even I know we're probably getting short, but even in the 12-step program, one of the steps says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to wholeness. And I said, listen to what that's saying.
Yeah.
I believe. And I said, I don't even think that people wrote that know what they're saying, but they're saying some truth there. People, they're being restored. If you're having to be restored to something, that means you were whole at some time. Mm-hmm. At one time, when you conceived in your mother's womb, in my opinion, you were pure and whole. And when you were born, because of the outside influences, etc., that purity starts getting defiled and shaped. and we wander off, doing whatever it is that we decided to do to make us feel that purity again. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then we finally realized, dang, when I get this conscious contact, this identity in Christ, when I get that concept down, I'm restored as close as I can in this life to the wholeness that I started out with.
Mm.
That is, a lot of people just don't grasp that right now.
Yeah. That's renewing our mind, I think. Believing the mind of Christ in us that tells us who we've always been. And yeah, we don't have time to go into that, but boy, it's sure good to think about it. Randy, as we get ready to wrap up here, I really appreciate you talking about your recovery program that you guys have done. Tell people again the name of that and how they can contact you and your ministry. And
go ahead.
No, and just how they can get a copy of that and maybe get some advice.
Yeah,
from
you can contact me. You can look up our ministry on our website at www.trinitariangraceinternational.com. But you can contact me through email at chaplain, CHAPLAIN 170, not my age, at gmail.com. That'll come straight to my box. If you'd like to request a copy of our little recovery program that we've created, it's called LMA, not LMA like on the Clampets, but LMA. It's Life More Abundant. And it's kind of our Christ-centered version of a recovery program. And our motto of that program is we're all included. If you'd contact me, I'd certainly be glad to send you a copy of it. And if you'd like to start one in your neighborhood, all you need is just a room to meet in, or at your church, or whatever you want to do. Like I say, there's no charge, but he just asks that you stick by the format of the program if you're going to use it. And I think you'll like it once you look at it and see it. But that's how you can get that. And if you we have copies of video recordings of our weekly messages is on YouTube under my name, Rannie Childress, and also there's a lot of them on our website. So if you like to look on there and pick out somebody in particular you'd like to listen to, we had Paul Young speak for us not long ago. He's spoken for us a couple of times. Steve Young spoken for us, and I'm working on Baxter Kruger. But anyway, we're certainly, you're welcome. And I know that got one thing that Paul brought up that I'm happy about too. You got so many choices now. You can listen in with Paul. You can listen in with us. You can listen in with Steve McVey stuff, or you can go. There's just so much more to choose from now with our beliefs, and where you don't feel like you're being ostracized by saying, "Hey, what about this?"
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, Randy, it's always great to see you, and always just a special time in my life to get to be with you and talk with you. Of course, I watch your things and listen to them when I have a chance, but to be together and be able to talk, that's even more special. So thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Stay on the line and we'll chat for just a minute after we finish here. Thanks everybody for being with us for another edition of Grace Stall with Paul Gray, this time with my friend Rannie Childress. See you all next